Miss Kathleen Bradley, welcome to your first one-on-one with High Plus. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Man, it's such an honor. Anytime we get a chance to put someone like yourself that has been in the game, that has, as you might express, put some skin in the game. It's always like respected and honored. So thank you for sitting here with us.
Yeah, that goes literally skin in the game. Miss Parker has showing off skin. Okay, you're trying to be funny. Okay, I'm just kidding.
I love it. So let's just take it back. Let's go back where we started, Ohio. Right? Is that born and raised?
Born and raised in actually Girard, Ohio, which is near Youngstown, which used to be Bombtown, USA. And that's about 65 miles west of Cleveland.
Okay.
And it was a great place to be brought up from in the Midwest. And as a matter of fact, I was just back there and I was reminded of all the beauty of the changing of the season of the fall, autumn leaves and the colors. It was just so wonderful. But even growing up as a young child back there, I had always inspired to be in show business. Mm-hmm. My mother used to take me to the theater there, which I think was either 5 cents or 25 cents at the time. And I was always in awe of the characters and people on that big screen. And that really just gave me a lot of momentum and a lot of motive to want to be there and be like that whenever I grew up. So I always kept that in the back of my mind.
What do you think was going on with you as a young child that felt that was your calling, that was the place that you wanted to go? What was happening?
I don't know. It was just in my heart. And just to see the people there. And, I was always kind of a cutie pie little kid, so I thought. But I did go through an ugly stage, now I'm let you know. Okay. I'm still kind of cute now, but I did go through it. But I'm just thinking, hey, I want to be up there. I want to do that. It seems like it's quite interesting and intriguing.
Right.
So with that, I mentioned, I was about 8 years old when I started thinking that and continuously going to the movies, theaters. Of course, there weren't many people of our color or hue that represented us in the industry at that time by no means. So, but it didn't matter at that point to me. And I told my mom that's what I wanted to do. She did help put me and kind of gear me up to being in, acting classes, a few of them back there that were available. Actually, it was a couple of her friends who tried to put me in modeling school and acting, different things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I did come with the, actually I joined the acting class in high school when I got a little older. And I was in a few class plays and some fashion shows, anything I could do to be out there in the public's eye.
Sure.
I wasn't a shy child. Yeah. She probably knew.
Make me, I'm curious about your mother. Did you take after your mother, your father? Like, what kind of mother did you have?
I'm actually a combination of my mother. My father was dark skinned and my mother was very fair skinned. Both African American, black, Negro, colored, whatever you want to call it back in those days, honey. So we went through a plethora, obviously, of name calling. Name identification.
Right.
But my mother would always sing around the house, always singing. And she had such a pretty voice. And my mother was so beautiful, such a wonderful, warm, sweet lady. And my dad, he worked at the steel mill. Everybody's dad worked at the steel mill. The steel mill workers probably made more money than if you were going to go to college and become a teacher or a doctor or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. And that just, my mom kind of inspired me to go into show.
It seems like that was a kind of a traditional infrastructure family. You had the dad at work, and did mom also work?
She did work at some point, worked at the local big department store, which would be the equivalent to the Macy's here. It used to be called Strauss Hirschberg. And she worked there. And also she had a couple of other little different jobs, but to help ends meet back then. And now we're talking for people who don't know, the 1960s and 70s, mainly the 60s. Let me put it like that, because I came to LA in 70s, but the 60s and late 50s. Wow, it was 50s, 60s. Oh, I hate to admit it, but it was. So the times and things back in that day and time were so different than obviously it is now, in our upbringing and our thinking and our ways and means of communication. Damn, the telephone just barely came out, okay? And we barely had a television set. I remember the first television set. We were in the neighborhood, which actually was pretty much segregated at that time in Girard. We had a lot of Italians that lived there, a lot of white people, and we were in the lower part of the city, obviously, and like they say, you live near the railroad tracks, and that is true of a lot of different suburbs and different places all around the United States, wherever you're from, in Georgia and different places by the railroad tracks. I guess because it was noisy, and the white folks didn't want to hear all that train tracks going by every day or what have you. But we all lived down in that area, and it was quite fun because we're pretty much all that we had.
I have just a kind of a question that deals with that era. You know, your dad, for me, just looking at it, represented kind of like a man's man. I don't know him, but it seemed like the steel work that's industrial. I'm gonna put in work. How do you think like men today, particularly black men, have changed over the years compared to the time your father?
Whoa. First of all, yes, he was a man's man. Albert Bradley, my daddy, boy, oh boy. And my dad, aside from working at the steel mill, he actually loved cars and he loved repairing cars. And he built a couple of cars, like a Clinet, put them together. And I remember my dad had it always, wherever we lived, we had to have a garage. And he built a brick garage on the very first street that we lived on, called Prospect Street. But he was always back. That was his man cave back then. And plus he loved drinking beer. My dad drank beer. He had a case of Rolling Rock back in the garage where his buddies would come over, have fun while he would be repairing everybody's cars and what have you. But he was very stern to some degree, but then he wasn't. I had 4 brothers, mind you. I'm the only girl, right in the middle. My one youngest brother, Ronnie, he's like 11 years younger than I, but the rest of us, we were all very close in age. And, I would go out in the garage and watch my dad do some things with the car. And I learned quite a bit for a young girl about cars and mechanics. And I kind of tripped some guys out over the years, knowing certain things and how parts of the cars work. You know, they never expected that of me. But I still don't like to change the tire to this day. I don't care. But my dad was great and wonderful. But I do remember my dad drank a lot. I can honestly probably say at this point at some time he was an alcoholic. He was a functioning alcoholic. I remember many days when he did work at the steel mill, I had to wake his butt up. Daddy, wake up, fix his lunch, because Mom had either gone to work or wasn't there at that particular time working, obviously. But by and large, he was a great supporter of the family. And men nowadays, to answer your question, they differ to a degree, because I think the women have taken on such a strong role in the family, spectrum, that sometimes maybe they will not allow the man to take control of the family. I'm very traditional in that manner, that I believe women should be, and I will say this word lightly, submissive to a degree to a man, especially and I believe the household, man is the head of the household. But now it has come to the point where you still agree on certain things, but I still hold my husband and a man in such high regard And I guess it will differ in every household, depending on if the man is working or not, if the woman's making more money. Even if the woman makes more money than the man, I don't think at some point that he should be diminished in the role that he needs to play within the household, especially if you have children, because there are stay-at-home dads, and that's fine. But I love to cook. I believe it's my job. For me, I will prepare and have that meal ready for my husband when he comes home, and for the kids.
Yeah. You mentioned something about not wanting to change your tire, even though you may know how to change your tire.
Right.
Okay. When it comes with women selecting the type of man that they want to be able to build with, do you think a man should at least know how to change a tire? Or I've even seen memes where a woman will pump her own gas and the guy might be sitting in the car. What do you think is happening outside of are women feeling like they can't trust us anymore to provide for them?
I don't think that women can't trust the men to provide for them. I just think that now the revolution of the women becoming more to the forefront and becoming more independent, that you can't not trust you, maybe not rely on you, is the word, because as you know, there's so many women. We're a childbearing people. We have the children. We're going to be there. We know who the mama is. Sometimes you don't know who the daddy is, but they're going to know who your mama is. Okay. So, you can always rely on your mother. So mothers have taken on a role in women to be more independent, because men will have had the habit of straying and not being as supportive financially, mentally, physically as they should within the family structure, which is unfair. And personally, I never really like to lump people into one category. I'm not about that. I hate when people do that, when they say this person, that, well, you guys, these people, and all of that. I really don't like that, because everybody differs in a way. But as you can see, the society has changed over the years because of more accessibility for women within the job structure, the educational structure, and doors opening more for women to excel in more jobs that were at many times and years ago were male oriented. So we've broken through so many barriers, and women want to be independent and want to do things if in fact that man cannot step up and do what he's supposed to do. There are so many single mothers right now, some mothers, women who elect to be single parents because just for some reason a man in their life has just not worked out.
Yeah. It kind of made me think about what you just expressed about women should be or considered to be maybe more submissive. Of course, that's going to probably trigger.
I know it is.
Which is why I love to maybe just at least make sure it's fleshed out on what you're trying to convey. My look at it is, I think it's an easier balance when we know our roles. Mm-hmm. So I do kind of lean into a more traditional approach. As a man, I think that there's a certain task at hand that I have to provide for my family.
Exactly.
Certain commitments, and there's a role that my woman will also contribute in a family dynamic that ultimately will balance each other out and create less confusion. But I feel like today there's a lot of confusion, who does what. Yeah,
exactly. And for, like I said, lack of a better word for submissive. But when you do take those vows, or if you're just in a relationship, I think I enjoy, me personally, catering to my husband to a degree. And likewise, he reciprocates. And men, they like to be catered to, and they like to have a nice dinner ready when they come home. But if a woman's working equally as the man is as well, then, he can also prepare a meal and have it ready. So each household differs so much. It just really depends on who gets home first, maybe, or talk it out during the day. Because I think sitting down to a nice dinner at the end of the day with the family or husband or spouse or whoever you're with is a very vitally important part of the day, as you all can come together and discuss certain things, because depending on your work schedule. Once again, some people work in the day, woman might work all day, husband work all night, that you guys can't even come together. But by and large, generally, and the kids that are at school, have those kids come sit down with you at a meal. Put those goddamn phones away. We have no phones at our table. I don't even take my phone to my bedroom. First of all, and I know, getting away a little bit from what you're talking about, but it all narrows down to focusing in on the person that you're involved with or around and having respect for them, a mutual respect and an understanding who does what and who is expected to take out the garbage, who's expected to do the dishes. Everybody better do them damn dishes and put them dishes in the sink or in the dishwasher, okay? Family. So we're talking about family unit as well as, a woman to man kind of a situation in a relationship. So everybody should pull their own weight to a degree, but come together on a mutual understanding that this is what that is. A lot of people fail with that communication, and it causes problems and issues, and nobody seems to know what's going on, who's supposed to do this, who's supposed to do that. Like this, the song says, understanding is mellow, baby. You got to have the understanding and be able to communicate.
Right. Now, as far as, you said you were the only girl out of the boys, or clearly out of your siblings.
Right.
How was that growing up with four brothers? I'm considering that you were getting looks. You were an attractive young lady. Did they ever have to come and check somebody on your behalf?
Kind of. At some point, they did kind of, it was such a small community, obviously, that everybody knew everybody, and even some of the surrounding guys from Youngstown, because Girard was I think there were 13 black children, kids, teens, whatever, graduated with me from Girard. So I would go to the neighboring city of Youngstown and visit with my girlfriends and cousins, and we kind of go out and go roller skating and dating and things. So I didn't have a lot of male callers, but there were a few guys that I really did kind of like. My brothers, they never really worried about that too much. Of course, my dad did. Mm-hmm. He would bring his shotgun out a few times, literally, figuratively. But, they were saying, you better not mess with Al Bradley's daughter because, Al don't play.
Right.
But brothers, not so much. They didn't worry about it so much. Okay.
So at what point do, we look at Hollywood as a real tangible move that you can make? When did you decide that I'm going to go ahead and take that leap and leave home?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, actually, when I was in high school, or prior to graduating, I had a very, very close dear friend who lived in Youngstown. She's my sister for all intents and purposes, because neither one of us ever had a sister. Terry Scott, she and her family was very close with my family. So they had family already in Los Angeles. That was in 1969. I graduated actually in 69. And she graduated in 68. So they had already gone to move out to California. And it was because of them moving to California that I felt safe, and knowing that I had family and relatives, somebody to go to stay with in California. Because if they were not there, I would never have really ventured out there on my own. I just would not have. And then, of course, New York is closer. And a lot of my friends and people that I know wanted to change their lifestyles and get out of Ohio went to New York because it wasn't as far away as California was. Just a large, big, long leap going way far out of the spectrum, a whole nother realm, a whole nother lifestyle. But they were there, and it was just perfect timing.
What was the expectation for Hollywood when you decided I'm going to go out there? What were you envisioning?
I just knew I was going to become the big new star, the Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, or somebody like that. And I went out there, and I knew I basically wanted to just get in some pageants. I got introduced to pageantry, and I knew I wanted to get some exposure. And of course, my sister girlfriend, Terry, thank God she was already connected with some people from USC. She married, her husband was Bubba Scott. He was one of the Wild Bunch who knew Al Callings, AC Callings. So they introduced me to Alan, and we became very close, good friends. And she knew a lot of different people. And O.J. Simpson at that time, who was really big, well known. So I was able to get in the mainstream of a lot of big, known people. And in Hollywood, and the candy store, and all these different clubs and different things, Pam Grier. So I was really meeting a lot of the right people and being involved in the right time, the right place. When I went to Maverick's Flat, John Daniels founded me and put me in the Miss Black California beauty pageant. Richard Roundtree was one of the judges.
Things were just kind of.
Oh, they just catapulted, the snowball. But actually, when I did get there, I did get a job now. I worked at the Southern California Gas Company, and I did that for quite a bit so I could earn some money. But after that, I just started, like I said, entering into pageants and becoming known and seen and what have you. And singing, I was with the singing group. John Daniels put me in the singing group called the Love Machine.
Okay.
And we traveled all around, but I fell into the idyllic situation when I came to Los Angeles with, like I said, knowing my sister girlfriend, Terry, knew all these people, and, you know.
Yeah. What was that first role that you can recall that you landed?
The first role?
Yeah, something notable. I mean, maybe not that.
Oh my God. Well, you know what? The first time I did something in the movie industry, oh my God, was with D'Urville Martin. Okay. Oh God, what is his name? I should remember this. I can't even remember the name of the movie. I did a little extra part. Billy D. Williams was in it. I can't even remember the name of the movie, but that was my first exposure to being in a movie. Of course, I did like some background or what have you, but it was just so intriguing, so interesting to see how they make the movies. It was a very low budget movie, of course, and just to be there, I was feeding off of it, and I loved just how everything was happening and going on, and the lights and the camera and the people and being around other celebrities. And I just said, I want to do more of this. I'd love to do more of it. And then I did get invited to do a few other little movies and different things. And but by that time, I did maybe 2 or 3 little movies of background and different things. And Pam Grier, my girl, my namesake, you know, she and I really kind of favored a lot back in the day and the time. And she was getting all my roles, honey. Let me tell you right now. But I was gone at that point because I joined the Love Machine. Gotcha. John Daniels got 7 females together. That was in the 71. And he joined us together. We had a 5-piece rhythm band and 3 horn sections. We traveled all over Europe for many, many years. Italy, Germany, Spain, Belgium, Sweden, Switzerland, Africa, Asia. Paris was our second home. I mean, I did this for 8 years, but initially it was just such an incredible time.
And this was the 70s in LA.
70, 71.
Was it as wild as people might imagine it was?
The 70s were, you know what, I'm telling you, we were so gone abroad because I was supposed to be one of the Soul Train dancers, but I was never home long enough to even do it. Plus, I was in the singing group. And like I said, we were gone, I was about 6 or 7 months out of the year, maybe not continuously, out of the year traveling abroad. John kept us traveling. Back then, it wasn't as expensive. And I mean, we were really roadies. We were doing our own with schlepping, this, that, and the other. The first place we ever worked and performed was Saint-Tropez, France. Okay. We worked there many times, met George Hamilton, all kind of different people, Marissa Berenson. We performed in front of kings and queens and just toured all around with Julian Iglesias, worked with Tom Jones when we came back to the States, and Sammy Davis Jr., Red Fox, we'd opened the show up before them. Isaac Hayes. We actually even signed with Motown. So I'm a Motown recording artist, basically. Yeah, worked with Norman Whitfield, Hal Davis. The Miracles wrote the song for us. She's just a love machine, and I won't work for nobody but you. They wrote that for us because they knew us, and we worked with them. That's when Billy Griffin came and was with the Motown, the Miracles, when Smokey had left. And we toured with them and worked with them in Japan and different places. But Suzanne DePass said, well, Billy, you know, the Love Machine, they're kind of distancing themselves from the Motown artistry right now. So I think you guys should use that song and perform it yourself. And Billy Griffin, he fought for us. He said, no, we have our label. Let's put the girls on that label. This song is for them, about them. When they wrote that, it was about John Daniels, and I won't work for nobody but you, because he was our manager and he did everything for us. And we, you know, performed. I mean, it was crazy. Needless to say, we were very upset. We could have been a one-hit wonder. I don't care if that was been the only song we ever sang in life to put us on the map. Right. To this day, it still hurts every time I hear that song.
Now, when I hear, you know, you running down those stories, this sense of, you know, creating back moments and valuing this one life that you have, are you moving in that terms of energy? Is that your spirit to be intentional about creating memorable moments?
Oh boy, yes. I do attribute my life, my lifestyle, my essence, my spirit, my being to being able to travel with the Love Machine, and thank God for John Daniels every day. He and I used to butt heads, but the man, he was really very creative. And had it not been for being in that group, the Love Machine, I don't think I would be the person I am today. And I've experienced a lot of different things, and it helped lead me into other places in life and jobs and opportunities and things that we'll talk about later. But the fact that I was so well traveled as a young person, no children, no family, no husband, basically to hinder me or hold me back, such as free spirit. And being involved with the other girls in the Love Machine as we became so close and sisters to this day, we're still in touch. So you have to figure that was like 52 years ago doing all of that. And the love and the kinship that we had created, like I said, is still existing. But the education of traveling to all of those countries and being exposed of the cultures and different things of that nature is just something you cannot buy, you know. And it's something I always encourage young ladies, when I do motivational speaking, I say, you know, try not to get yourself hooked up with a guy, a man, or whoever you love too quickly and easily in life. Then you should find out who you are first, venture out and know you and what you want to do. Try to hold back on having a family or some children, and especially if at all possible, try to go over to Europe or Asia or somewhere, find out how the other people live and just be in that surroundings, if possible. These days it's a little difficult, but there are programs that these young people can take part in that will allow them to be a part of, you know, programs to just go over there and look at
something. Yeah, made me think about Libby kind of touched on the point that I was more so curious about too, is like, did you consciously decide that I'm going to hold off on having children at one point in your career?
Yes, absolutely, I did, especially traveling with the Love Machine. You know, I was taking those birth control pills, honey, taking the birth control pills, IUD, whatever, because I knew I was not ready to have any children. And it worked out well. When I did decide finally. And there was one girl that was in the Love Machine, Paulette. She did have a daughter. She was the only one out of 7 of us, actually, who had a child. But her sister helped raise her daughter, and it worked out for her because she was able to still get out and do what she needed to do. And, you know, some people who have children are not meant to be really hardcore parents to be with children all the time, but that doesn't mean that they're lesser of a parent or just because they, have the child. And it sometimes works out a relative or family member, a grandparent, or somebody is more capable of helping you to raise that child if you're absent and not in the realm or frame of mind of parenting.
Right, it's got to be a challenge. I can imagine, particularly for women. Like different conversations I've had with female friends and even women that I've dated, they've expressed somewhat of wanting to have children, but also they have their own personal goals, and it becomes this kind of battle, particularly as they get older. It's like career or do I want family? Because that's also very important to a lot of women.
It's difficult. It is for a woman especially. And I mean, ideally, you want the husband, the wife, the house, the dog, the child, all of that. But nothing's ideally right now in this society. So these young women in particular have to really think about getting the best education that they can to put them in a certain bracket where they'll be able to be self-sustaining in case they do not meet that man of their dreams. And like I said, there are women that are of a certain age that have never had children that might want a child, either to adopt a child or even have, freezing their eggs and things of that nature to have a child at some point. But I do encourage a young woman, please at least wait 10 years after you get out of school, if you can, or 5.
So was that like 28, 20?
Yeah, something, at least 25 years old. Don't
Before you lock down.
And I tell you, lock down. Try to do what you can while you can, while you are free. Because once you have a child, it is very demanding. And you do owe it to that child to pay attention to them and help raise them. And with that comes a lot of energy, anxiety, love, despair. You go through all the emotions of life with a child. Just one child, and just how there, and then they have 2 or 3 more children, not thinking.
Right. We talked about the 70s, and you mentioned Pam Grier. I was just naturally, my curiosity would be like, okay, you guys had to probably run in the same circles or run into each other. Do you remember the first time you met Pam?
I do remember the first time I met her. Actually, I was dating Al Collins, AC. And we would all go out, me and my cousin Terry and Bubba, AC and I, and we'd also hang out with OJ and his wife Marguerite. And Marguerite was the first one to say, when I came to LA, you guys, that's Kathy. They come, Kathy, remind you of Pam, the girl, that DJ that was at the candy store. It was a sports page then, the sports page. She reminds me of Pam. Pam, the lady who does the DJ there, doesn't she? They say, yeah, they do kind of favor and look alike. So we go to the sports page, and I saw Pam. Pam saw me. We're like, damn. Kind of just looked so much alike and had the same features and mannerisms and different things and that stuff. And we became, kind of friends at that point when I'd go there, but not like besties or calling and all of that and what have you. But I'd see her over a period of time at different places and what have you. And it was just, it's hard to think sometimes when you go to a place, you see somebody that looks like you that you didn't think you had, but everybody has their, like they call them now, Dopplers, or looking like somebody looks like you in this world. But just to meet somebody like that favors you, that was quite an interesting pleasure.
Because with one thing in the industry, it does seem like there's competition, women, and it's like there's a code and not. But being around women, there can be cattiness. What was was it competition?
No, it was cool, but I mean, everybody kind of knew her because she became, then she was the DJ, and everybody said, hey, Pam. But I was kind of like the new kid on the block, and people were looking at me, and Wilt Chamberlains and all those people and guys and stuff there in the club, all the athletes, man, Jim Brown, everybody, they noticed me because I was an attractive young lady, and Pam was kind of stepped behind the DJ booth doing what she did, and like I said, I was basically with the Love Machine at a certain point in time, so I wasn't really here and able to deal with any camaraderie of that nature. But I saw what she was doing, and she was doing basically what I had wanted to do, and I did oftentimes think that had I been there in LA, would I have been able to land some of the roles? And I knew some of the directors and people who helped produce some of the movies and things that she did. And then on the other hand, I thought, would I really, I mean, she bared herself quite a bit. I don't know, at that point, would I wanted to expose myself the way she did?
Right.
And that was kind of frowned upon a lot back then, with a lot of people that, or how I was raised. And with the society or, you know, church people and things, me going and doing this and that. So I was thinking, wow, I don't know that I could have done what she did back then.
So the curiosity for me is that, like, looking at that, it's like, okay, here you are wanting to be the young girl to be on film and do movies, and then here's this person that looks just like you. You guys are relatively the same age. I think she has you by a couple years.
Right.
And you've seen her taking off, and I'm just wondering, how are you processing that? Was there like conversations of regret of deciding to go out and travel versus being at home? How did you process that as a person?
No, it was never any conflict with me wanting to be there in LA to further my acting career, because it seems like everything kind of happened so quickly with the Love Machine and touring and just being on the road. And I just kind of learned to love and accept the excitement of being on the road and being in front of the audience. To me, I loved being in front of audiences, in front of people and performing. I've always been that natural performer. So, but when I did see it come home and see how she was flourishing in her career, I did kind of regret then, maybe a little bit, thinking, wow, I could have been here doing some more movies and films. And there were some people in the industry that had asked me, wow, we want you to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, at that point, it would have been a conflict, because I didn't know when we were going to take off again and be on the road. I wasn't going to leave the Love Machine to be in a movie or something that would be uncertain as the outcome, and, you know, what have you. It wasn't worth the risk.
It seems, you know, in doing interviews, it seems that the more, and I'm going to word this right, to make sure that it doesn't smudge Pam in particular. But it does seem like when you have morality and things that you won't do, you're just not down for anything. It does seem like it stifles your growth, or puts like a cap to it.
Right.
So I just wonder, like, yeah, if you did say, you know what, I don't mind exposing myself, being new, doing these new roles, maybe that would have helped impact your career. Were you decisive at one point saying, I won't do any new roles? Or did that, like, over time change in your acting?
Yeah, no, I didn't want to clearly do any new roles. I was really just not confident or shy that I didn't want to do that. So that was never something I really thought to do. Though there was a point in time I did do one new photo with Lamont McLemore. And I felt more comfortable, I guess, doing a photo, but I didn't know it was going to be to the extent that it was in a magazine with my top. But it was in the swimming pool. It was fun. And it wasn't like in a love scene. It wasn't like somebody touching all over me and acting and what have you. To me, that was kind of like a different kind of thing. But I didn't regret that I didn't get the role, because I don't think I wouldn't have been ready to do what she did. And, you know, of course, she got put in that little trick bag and thing over a period of time. But after a while, obviously, it worked out for her, you know, and she became a black goddess and beautiful and just smart. And, you know, she showed that she had brains and that she wasn't a bimbo, just exposing herself. Her mentality was the mindset that she wanted to do that, because hey, look at her. She's one of the first actual black female persons who was a hero to a degree. And she would always conquer and beat down these men and became that kind of iconic figure after a while when people got past the nudity, because she was a very strong figure, a woman in those movies.
Yeah, you got me thinking. You just had mentioned the circle that you were running with. You were dating the gentleman, Al Collins at the time.
Right.
And then you were with OJ and his wife. Now, his wife was black at the time.
Yeah, Marguerite, yes.
And I think he later on would marry, of course, he would marry Nicole.
Nicole.
You know, this whole thing with black men and white women, was that a thing then? And how did you guys, in your era, process seeing black men that were prominent choosing white partners?
Well, really, at some point, I wasn't bothered by it at that point. But we were upset, obviously, when OJ left Marguerite. She was just so sweet and endearing. And, you know, I was around when Jason and Arnell were born, their two kids, and when she got pregnant and what have you, and when they lived on Mulholland and then moved over to their other place. But
was it more so that he left her, or was it more so that he left her for like a white woman?
Well, you know, I can't really speak on that, because then again, at some point I was not around all the time. I did leave and traveled a lot, so I didn't know a lot of what was going on behind the scenes and intricate times and moments with people's lives and what was happening. But just knowing that sometimes, you know, that was his high school sweetheart. They grew up together, went to school together. They were like this. And with a lot of athletes, they find and have their black women right by their sides to support them and be with them as they're going through all these trials and tribulations, trying to make it big in the NFL or NBA or different things of that nature. And some of them stick with them and some of them don't.
Yeah.
You know, they find that when they get out there and all that glory and all that notoriety and different things, and all these women start throwing themselves at you, that you probably, if you were not that big athlete, would have them coming on to you otherwise, that you like, wow, she's fine. Look at this white girl. She likes me. Mm-hmm. I might try to taste and move on over to the next taste of new flavor here. So they think like that sometimes, and they just do.
Yeah, without going into the details of that, I just wonder, you as a black woman, did it bother you to see that happening? Because you mentioned a lot of our black women will be the ones that we start with, right? That's who's around us. We coming up, we're in school with them. They hold us down. We feeling insecure. We're going through stuff, and then we get ourselves together, and then we transition. So
Yeah,
did it bother you?
With OJ, just because I knew Marguerite so personally, it like probably maybe within any relationship hurt that they didn't make it. And of course, always choosing someone outside of your, you know, nationality or colors, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. So I didn't think a lot about it, but we were kind of hurt that they didn't make it.
I have one last question to wrap that particular piece of our conversation up. Seeing where OJ's life went, you knowing his first wife, do you think that would have been the same outcome of him, you know, being up in these different mayhems and situations?
You know, that I can't really even answer that respectfully, because who knows? And that's all I have to say. Evidently, he wouldn't have been with Nicole if he was still with Marguerite, obviously.
Yeah,
you know, but, you know, everything happens for a reason.
Well, I guess I love the, there's a sense of groundedness when I think both black men and black women are in a good place. That kind of keeps you out of trouble. You know, keeps that's kind of
There is, but I know within that relationship, OJ was very aggressive kind of person and very demanding. So at some point he just, and literally ego got the best of him, his head. He was really just flying high on his success. And you have to imagine all of these corporations and big mucky mugs and people of all different colors and nationalities and what have you, admiring him on the pedestal that he was put up on. It really went to his head. He just really took it and ran with it literally. And those that got in the way or didn't agree, or I think a lot of his sensitivity towards where he came from at some point kind of got diminished.
Yeah.
And lost sight of it as a black man. Period.
Can Hollywood do that? Is that what?
Oh, Hollywood can do that. Even in the professional athletes, especially, we've seen that happen to them. All of the above. I think I've seen more with the professional athletes that happens to than more so with Hollywood actors.
Is it quick, or is it just because the athletes are, I'm going to athletes like professional athletes, and I am generalizing. So for people that are listening, I don't want them to be upset, but there seems to be like they kind of live a scheduled life. I go, I practice all day, I work on my craft, I go home, I do that again, and it seems like when they get hit with success and the world opens up to them right away, that's where maybe they weren't fully developing as a person.
I just think that it's the nature of the beast, literally, because of the stigma or the person, not so much the person, but the personalities that they develop. And have these people, women, coming after them of all different shades and colors because they're making all of this money. They're the cheerleaders. They're the people who go to these games. They're the girls and people who go to the nightclubs knowing that they're going to be there. There's the women who may want to go do one night stand hoping to get pregnant by some of these athletes and people. And the guys just now have such a great sense of freedom, especially after they've come out of school, high school, college. Mm-hmm. And, they've been so regimented and working very, very hard on their craft and training. Like you say, they have been training so much. And then they feel like the sense of freedom has they've given this sense of freedom and all this money. And they want to flex their muscles. They want to do what they want to do. And some of them get lost in the whole shuffle and, mistreat the manner in which that they were given this gift and not doing the right things. Why some of them start drinking, doing drugs and mistreating women so many times. Then, every individual is different. Not all of them fall into that category, but we do see a lot of our young men and athletes fall into that realm. And it's so unfortunate, man. Because especially, start doing some of these drugs and alcohol and what have you. And so many of them get caught up with just mistreating the women. They take it for granted. They have so many. They forget who they even slept with. But like I said, not all. Just a handful of them can do that. And it comes out nowadays, especially with our social media, with these cameras, you can't hide stuff, it's out there. So they have to just be so careful and so particular what they do with their lives. And like a lot of them are role models. And some of them say, I didn't want to be a role model. I'm an athlete. I'm doing my own thing. I don't need people to look up. But kids do look up to your behind. You're making $2 million, $25 million a year and stuff. Mm-hmm. You're somebody that our kids want to look up to. No. So kind of act like it a little bit.
Yeah. Now, 1989, and you probably were filming this movie, but you remember landing the role in Harlem Nights?
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how did that even come about?
I know Richard Pryor very well. And Red Fox, I knew him. We worked with Red, but most importantly, Eddie Murphy. I dated him once upon a time. And actually, I was pregnant with my son, Terrence. I was like about 2 or 3 months pregnant because Eddie had also asked me about the role for Sunshine to do that. And I said, Eddie, I don't know if I can make it through the movie. I'm pregnant, gonna have a baby. So he said, well, I got one for you. It's a nice quick little role here. And so, I didn't have to audition or anything. He literally gave me that role, that part.
That's beautiful to know that you guys were able to like stay in touch after dating. So it wasn't a bad breakup, or what was
I mean, you know, it was kind of like a fling. Let me put it like that. It was a fling. We'd seen each other maybe for about 6 months or something. So I don't know if that I was the only person in his life, like you know, so many people in Hollywood. You know, where did we? I'm trying to think. I think we met at a club, mutually met at a club. Just, you know, he was Eddie Murphy. Who didn't want to go? Like, oh my God, Eddie. And it was just a thing we had, you know, nothing more.
That's dope. On the set of Harlem Nights, Richard Pryor, your friend, was also there. Now I'm going into a theme. Okay, we all know that Kathleen Bradley, aka Miss Parker, is known for her beauty. So I just feel like a lot of men was sought after you. Richard Pryor was there for a relationship or dating there.
And what?
Did you ever date Richard?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I did date Richard, and I always knew that that was after he dated Pam Grier. And you have to remember. There was a time my nose actually was a little different. I did have some work done on my nose.
Okay.
I had a deviated septum was what it was called. And seriously, I couldn't breathe as well because one side of my nose was stopped up and I had real difficulty breathing. And I used to fly a lot too when I was with the group, and just I did have it. And the doctor, I hated that he really, to me, shaved it down way too much right here. So my nose actually used to be almost like Mohawk, like Indian, looking like Pam. So we really looked even more so like each other back then than I do now. But and Richard, I met him at a club, and he's hi, and you know, damn, you remind me of Pam. That's after they broke up and stuff, because, you know, they went together for a long time. So he and I just kind of hit it off for a little while. You know, I was younger then and still enthralled and intrigued with all these Hollywood people and stars and everything. And if they liked me, I'm like, oh, you know, you feel special. Right. And we kind of just dated for a little bit, saw each other and what have you. So,
were certain stories being, I know you have a book, were certain stories being the book?
No, none of that.
Okay.
Because the book I wrote, it basically encompasses the 10 years I was on The Price is Right. Some things I do reflect on and go back in my life that helped kind of mold me into the Barker Beauty person who I was chosen. But nothing detailed like that. That's another book, honey.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's quite deep. And I think there's a level of just like respect of composure and people being professional, because you did Harlem Nights, and at that point you have dated both of them.
Yes, I did.
Is there laughter? Is there conversation? Is it just like it's our business, like separately? How did you?
You know, actually on the set, I only really worked one day. Eddie was on the set because he was directing. I don't think Richard, I think they did do a scene at Tape Before. I didn't really see everybody. You have to remember, when you do these films, even though people are in the movies and do different scenes or what have you, you don't see everybody. You do your little part. If they're not working there and shooting that day, you don't even see them. Some people don't even know that are in the film until you see it. So he wasn't there that day I shot. Nor was, like I said, we worked with Red Fox. We opened his show in Las Vegas and traveled with him a bit. He used to call me the girl from Ipanema. You know, Red was something else, but he was such a sweetheart. But nothing with him. But yeah, I did. Eddie was quite an interesting guy, but Richard was.
You weren't intimidated to date Pryor, given how him and Pam Grier broke up?
No, because actually I didn't even really know they had dated. I really didn't. Like I said, I was traveling still with the Love Machine. You have to remember, all this was like in the 70s. I was with the Love Machine from 1970 to 78. And I come back home periodically, and I had a boyfriend I was dating that was in one of the other groups that was out of Maverick's flat. And we were always just kind of as close-knit other groups that John had. We were like, the Mavericks Flat Entertainers, the Blanc and Seven Soul Rose, The Love Machine. He had David's Eating Bread. He had a couple other groups that would come through there. For Maverick's Flat, was the West Coast Apollo. And everybody that came through there were really just very close-knit people. And the Soul Train dancers would come in there and rehearse all the time and practice and come to the club. It was just absolutely wonderful. A lot of the other, Richard Pryor and all the dramatics and everybody, Pam would come through there, Jim Brown, you name it. All the people would come through there back in the day. It was quite the epic place to be at.
Now, with you being known as like one of our staples of Black beauty, I think last year or this year, you went viral when you commented on Lil' Kim.
This year.
Yes, this year. Okay.
Yes.
And, that was a quick video. And, it did what it did. It hit the blogs and whatnot. It spread out everywhere. Now you're able to kind of like have a conversation about it. What were you trying to, what was the message that you were trying to convey?
There was no message. It was just, I was in shock. I was in shock by her ham hocks. I hadn't seen her in a while. But I've known her not knew her, but seen her when she was younger, pretty, natural, normal. And to see her looking like she did, coming down those steps, my mouth dropped. I couldn't believe that was her because I had seen some other pictures of her as she was transitioning into this whole other being, person, whoever she was trying to be. And I thought, it's kind of like with Michael Jackson, he was such a cute, nice boy. And he got to a point where he had a little surgery where he looked fine and great, but then he went above and beyond. The looks where it just didn't even look normal, natural. And she has gone to that point.
What do you think women are like? What kind of messages are women getting to make them feel comfortable to, make themselves, look like that?
I don't know. Everybody's different. My whole thing is to say why, because now, before when you used to have a big butt, women were like, oh, my butt's too big, and it wasn't fashionable. Well, of course, we know now certain people put big butts on the map, and now everybody wants a big ass, a big old butt, and it's fashionable, and big thighs and different things, and bodies, and women's bodies are changing, and the way men people perceive them are changing, and breasts and what have you. But sometimes to try to make yourself and put yourself in such at risk with all the plastic surgery and things you have to go through just to get to that point. I mean, to me, it just conveys like you're not happy with yourself to a degree that I don't know who you want to try to be like, who you want to look like. When does it stop? At what point? I know she's had several surgeries, in which all of them are quite painful and dangerous. Even for me to have had my little nose done at some point, that kind of hurt. And I can only imagine trying to get your eyes done, your nose done, your lips done, injections here and all of that. To me, it's over dramatic. If people feel like they just need that, then so be it. But, when you change your look so much,
so maybe
see your own mama don't recognize you.
Yeah. So maybe the way to approach, surgery is like one or two different, maybe one or two is cool.
Well, I can't, tell people how many surgeries they have or what they're looking for, what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But at some point when you how far away from your normal, natural looks do you want to get? She was so cute at some point, and people even after I said that, people were putting up comparison photos from when she was younger and how she looked and, cute, fine. I mean, I don't know who she's chasing after.
Yeah.
Because you're chasing after something within yourself that you're not comfortable with your own body and your own skin, that you want to look like or be like somebody else whom I don't know, and why she thinks that she has to have her behind spread from a size 36 to a 42 or whatever, and why, and if she really thinks that's attractive, then, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But to me, I was shocked. And I have to tell you, I didn't, it was just something. I'm always, I'm a people person. I love people, and people do what you want to do. But I've always been kind of funny in a way where I will make comments and say things about people. Sometimes if people ever would put a microphone on me somewhere, people would probably fire my ass from somewhere, because I do talk about people. I do dish it up. I dish it up. And I say things to my cousins, girlfriends, and people, and I'll talk about you and say stuff in fun. And, I've always been like that, too, to just dish dirt and make funny comments and stuff about people. Sometimes that hurt people's feelings, but that's just in my innate ability to want to just say things and make light of it, but make fun of it. But it's really true. And nobody wants to say it, but I would say it. But now you have to just be very careful what you say about people, because they got the cameras rolling, they got things rolling, they got your comments coming back to you about certain things. If people don't like it and whatever, it's, everybody's got their own opinion.
With that, I think with little Kim, it's just disheartening, because, like you said, she was a cute young lady, and it's kind of like, why are you doing this thing? It's not like you're from our lens, she may not be enhancing her beauty. It's just kind of just, disfiguring it a bit.
Yeah, I think it was more her body than her face. All I could see was look like a rotisserie chicken coming down the damn steps, down like this. Them five, like, oh my God. Ooh, Lord. She looked like a rotisserie chicken.
Now, because little Kim could be watching it.
And she could be. That's it. You look like it. It's like what really always I wanted to be a comedian. I have to tell you the truth, because I had some things, and I got a character too, which I have, and it's called Kathleen. I don't know if you ever saw it. I put it online, and she has an afro and the hair and stuff. She's like, this Kathleen and Kathleen, and I'm like that, and that's my character. People who know me, some people don't know me like that. Yeah, it's very interesting. And I'm very sarcastic. I am.
Now, at one point, as you were able to kind of maneuver and meet different people, you would land a position with The Price is Right. Do you remember how you got into that conversation to even be considered for?
Okay, well, I actually had always, after I left the Love Machine, I actually got married, had a beautiful child. And then I remarried, and I still did modeling and some acting and what have you. And I just had a child. After 3 months, my agent called me and said, Kathleen, how would you like to audition for The Price is Right? They're looking for a black model. I think you'd be perfect for this. And you don't have to imagine after 3 months after having a baby, but actually, I always kept my body in shape, because in this business, your body and your figure, face, everything, that's your passport. And you have to be ready and prepared. Mm-hmm. And she said, you have to wear a swimsuit under your clothing. They want to see you. Come on, go to the audition. And I said, okay, I had maybe 1 week to really kind of pull it together a little better, but I was in decent shape. I felt pretty confident. And I went in for an audition and met with the producers, Philip Wayne and Roger Dobkowitz. And they liked me well enough. And I, of course, had to show my body because of swimsuit models. And they liked me well enough to invite me to do a couple of the live TV shows. Okay. So I went in, I taped several TV shows live, and they saw maybe about 250 models all over a period of about 6 months before they chose, the actual model, which was me. I could have saved them all that time and let them know I was the chosen child. And I got chosen. I was really, basically I think why I kind of got it. I was a little hammy. I'd always watched the show, and I was more in the age range with Diane, Holly, and Janice. Those were the 3 pre-existing models. I was pretty much in their age range, and the fact that I was world traveled and had been around and knowledgeable and could talk to them about so many different things. I didn't feel intimidated by them. They liked me a lot. And I think some of the other models may have been a little timid, a little shy. And some of them I think were a little younger, even 5 or 10 years makes a difference, and they would rather have someone of their peers and their age range. The models did actually. And they did have a little say-so as to who they thought they liked and wanted to work with, because it was new to them to have an additional fourth model added, which meant they were going to have a little less airtime.
Right.
So I was just elated when I got chosen.
Yeah. Now, for those that don't know, that weren't really around during this particular season in your life, were there a lot of Black women getting these type of opportunities?
Not elsewhere. There was one other model, a Black model who did a game show, and her name is Elaine. She's now she's married to Reggie Theus. I forget what show she was on, TV show, but I was the first permanent Black model to be on Barker Beauty on The Price is Right.
Right.
And that was in 1990. And I stayed on the show for 10 years. And, it wasn't a lot of other opportunities for Black models at that time to even be on TV. And actually, CBS was under scrutiny because they didn't have enough diversity in their programming, daytime television programming. Mm-hmm. They did not, especially on maybe some of the soap operas and different shows. So they had to actually add more Black people on The Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful. And of course, The Price is Right was one of them.
Yeah. As far as, you had to wear a bathing suit, and that was something that was, definitely got viewers' attentions, but it also, just from stories, it also got some of the crew's attention as well. And there was an 8 seconds rule. Yes,
there was. You have to imagine all these guys in grips and the people in the back putting the scenery together and moving stuff out of the way and everything, and all these beautiful models. We'd wear bikinis and different things, and cleavage and some of the gowns or what have you. And of course, you're a guy. You're gonna look. You're standing right next to this chick, and she's dressed like that. And you're not gonna look, and that's just not logical.
Right.
And though at some point when there was a little bit of, and not just on The Price is Right, but some of the CBS and the shows that women were feeling a little intimidated and like sexual harassment a little bit, maybe. And it doesn't come from just touching somebody, but just looking at somebody the wrong way, for staring at them for a while. They consider that sexual harassment.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, the 8 seconds rule was if you
So the 8 seconds rule was if the guy looked at a model or somebody, a female that was on that show, longer than 8 seconds, that would be considered sexual harassment.
Who's counting in this rule?
I know nobody's counting, right? It's kind of a ridiculous thing to a degree, but it just got the guys to know and recognize, hey, you guys, you're there to do a job. We know the models are there. They're beautiful. You guys, are friends and maybe kicking it with them or what have you, but you don't stare her down. Don't look her up and down longer than 8 seconds, or it will be considered sexual harassment.
Yeah.
In case when the models felt uncomfortable.
Did it actually happen that where someone failed the 8 second rule and they would get removed from the set?
Not that I know of, but it was sending a message to the crew, to the guys back there, to say, hey, cause some of it, there was a couple of guys in particular, I don't know how they stayed on the show. They wouldn't be there now. And they were one person in particular became a good friend of mine, Richard, you know who you are. And he was just real fresh and a prankster. He was just all in fun and going around doing stuff, or brush up next to you and do stuff and everything, and trying to act like he didn't know you were standing there, or back up to you and what have you, laugh about it. He was just funny and kind of obnoxious. Mm-hmm. And it did bother me a little bit when I got there, but they kind of passed it on because there weren't that many Black guys behind the stage and scenery. So I think they were a little reluctant to let the Black guy go if there's only like 2 out of like 20. So at some point, they did make that rule because a couple of us were feeling a little uncomfortable at some point.
In that time frame, I mean, there's a lot going on. You have we just got out the 70s, or this was like late 80s?
90s.
90s. So
I was 1990 to 2000.
Okay. So we're in the 90s. I'm just thinking about, it's made me think about two things. One is, you have this Me Too movement that's prevalent now. Was that kind of like an early sense of where you think the industry was going with women?
No, I don't think so. That never came into play there with us. For me in particular, because I was almost as much fresh as the guys were, fooling around with them sometimes. That's my personality.
Mm-hmm.
But, Diane Parkinson, she did date Bob, and that was like taboo. You don't date your employees and you don't date your boss on the show. So they were keeping it under wraps.
Right.
So at some point, Diane left the show for several reasons. And, but prior to that, Bob just terminated the relationship while she was still on the show. And after she left, she thought about it. And here comes nice little cutie pie Gina Lee Nolan taking her place. And, she was sitting at home not getting all the calls and opportunities that she thought she would get if she left, because she had done Playboy magazine a couple of times. It was frowned upon by Bob Barker and the producers and Mark Goodson, but she went ahead and did it the second time, and some other things she did. And so she thought about it, and she said, I'm going to let everybody know this was sexual harassment with Bob. I'm suing. And I would talk to her on the phone. I said, Diane, now you know better. Everybody knows it was consensual. But she did. She said it was sexual harassment. It was big news, big blowout. Here you have Bob Barker, Americana, nice, tall looking guy, and everybody's mother and aunties and grandmothers looking at him and thinking the show's so great. And so Bob tried to get ahead of it, and he went on the news. He said, that is not true. It was a consensual relationship. He said, I'm not paying this woman one penny. But we did have to do a deposition. She tried to take it as far as she could, but she and her attorney knew she was losing ground, and there was nothing substantial to stand on the ceremony saying that he did anything like that. So she dropped the case. But after that kind of big news gets out about somebody like that, it's very hard to get vindicated.
Yeah.
There are people that still don't know the outcome or still think that he sexually harassed her, but he did not. And he didn't have to pay her anything, like I said. And vindication it's really on page number 3, this small, right? And the big accusation is going to be forefront on the front page. And that's something that tainted Bob's whole persona. And after that, he was really never the same, because he felt bad about it. And some other things came up, I heard, in terms of some of the other models, of people saying that he harassed them or sexually harassed them. And there were some other lawsuits. But, as far as the Bob Barker, I knew he had more respect for most of the women, the girls, the models, and everybody on that show.
Yeah.
I never saw that part of him ever, if it existed.
Yeah. And you would write a book about your experience.
This book right here, this book right here.
What made you decide to write a book about
it? It is called
this?
Backstage at the Price is Right, Memoirs of a Barker Beauty. When I was let go and terminated unjustifiably, Janice and myself were actually, it was very devastating. Nobody saw it coming. There were new producers on the show that took over, but Bob was still in charge. Bob was executive producer, so he always said he had nothing to do with it. It was just kind of cold and calculating the way that we were let go. They promised that Janice and I would be given a new opportunity to be on the television show they were creating for a model search show. And that was the reason that we were let go. And they were just looking to try a new look with some models, maybe a male model or somebody. So it just never really happened like that. And after thinking about it, Janice and I, we were just blindsided. And we found out some other things behind the scenes, that it was, unjustifiably, it was age discrimination, this, that, and the other. And so we were going to do a lawsuit against them, but we didn't have to, and we came to an amicable agreement and a settlement. And as a result of that, there was a block on non-disclosure. I couldn't talk about anything that happened.
Right.
Why I was let go from the show for 4 years. So with that being said, over a period of time, things would build up the animosity and thinking how I was let go because that was my dream job. All the models had been on that show for years, 10, 20, 20. Janice was on there 29 years to my 10. I'm thinking, great job, great gig. We work 3 days a week. 3 weeks and we're off and we have hiatus. It's not far from my house. I don't have to memorize lines, and it was just the perfect job. And then to be blindsided.
What does that look like, blindsided? Like, because ultimately if me and you ran a show, we would have to have the ability to change out the cast if we considered. So was it the fact of how they did it? How did they do it that made you feel offended?
What happened actually like a week before that, the new company Fremantle came into our production room where everybody was in there. We were all called in. At that time, it was me modeling, Janice, and Nikki Ziering. Nikki was there. We just had the 3 models at that point. And they said, hi, we're the new production company. Things won't be changing much. Everybody is going to still stay on. We're doing this, we're doing that. We might make a few little changes here and there. And everybody's like, oh, whew, all right, wow, that's cool, great, new production, new management, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then a week or two later, right when we were going to go on hiatus, the producer said, hey, you guys, before you go home, go down to Barker's dressing room and they want to talk to you. We're like, oh, okay. So Janice went in first. They took us by seniority. She went in first. And I'm wondering, what's going on in there? Who's in there? What's happening? So Janice was in there for a while, maybe 10 minutes. She came out. I said, Janice, what's going on? What happened? She said, you'll see, you'll find out. So they called me in the room. Of course, Barker's not anywhere around. It was, I forget the guy's name, but a lady and one of the new producers. He was in there. Kathleen, hi, how are you? Okay, da-da-da. So right now we're creating, there's a new job opportunity that we want to present to you and Janice for a model search. And we think you guys will be great at it. And they talked about it a little bit, this or that and the other. We're creating this for you guys. However, you'll no longer be a Barker beauty. Mm. I'm like, did I just hear what I thought he said? My heart jumped, stood still. It was like, your best friend just died. But he kept talking. And he said, yeah, it's going to be exciting. Da, 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 da. I'm like, well, maybe there's some validity there. Maybe they're going to do this. Maybe they're not, whatever. It's worth it. At least I said, and then I thought to myself, I said, okay. And I said, thank you. I was like totally just oblivious. I left that dressing room. I got my little bags. I went into the elevator. And I was thinking about it. And I'm like blindsided. Like, did I just get fired or are they going to give me a new job or what's happening? And then all of a sudden the elevator doors opened. Some people got on. I never pushed the button on the elevator. I must have been on there about 5 minutes and never went anywhere. Wow. And the people said, oh, where are you going? I said, downstairs. Were in shock. I was in total shock. And I looked around me as I left CBS studio and saw all the familiar photos that they have from all the, shows and people. And we used to be on the wall walking down with Bob and all that. And I said, wow, I'm never going to see this again. And I got into my car and I cried my eyeballs out. You would have thought somebody died. I couldn't stop crying. I just sat there for the longest and I cried. I said, look, I got to stop crying so I can drive home. So I finally kind of gathered myself and stopped crying long enough to get out of the gate and going down Beverly Boulevard. And then I started crying again. I couldn't stop. I couldn't see where I was going. I swear to God, I almost crashed. I said, somebody looked over at me to see how hard I was crying. they would have definitely thought there's something's wrong with this lady. They might have pulled me over. And by the time I got home and told my husband, and he was just felt so badly for me. And Janice and I finally had the opportunity to talk at that point, because neither one of us knew before we went in what was happening. We could barely believe it. We said, what the hell just happened? Because that doesn't happen.
Okay.
In on The Price is Right. The model stayed there forever, okay? There's no crying in baseball. But it surely did happen. So anyway, after a period of time when we got the settlement, I was still a little salty about it.
Yeah.
Thought about it. And then I said, I'm going to write a book. And really, to tell you the truth, what gave me the incentive to even start really writing the book was the book that, what's her name wrote, gosh, I'm getting a brain fart here, about the Video Vixen. Video Vixen.
Got you.
She wrote the book. I saw her, actually, she was on Bill Maher's show, and she was talking about the book. And she was telling it all and giving it all up and everything. And I happened to be going to New York. And when I went past the bookstore in the airport, I see her, all these books, Video Vixen, Corinne Steffens. And I said, damn. I said, if she can do it, I know I can do it. I bought her book. I read it. It was an easy, good breeze through book to read. And I actually kind of patterned some of my book after her a little bit. And Bob Barker had written a book. I kind of looked at that and I kind of gathered things together. I started putting things in order and together and thinking about stuff. And it took me a couple of years to really write it. I wrote it on my own and putting thoughts and chapters and ideas down. And I just finally came up with it. And it is a real good, easy read. I didn't want it to be my biography. It's not my biopic. It is actually about the 10 years of me being on The Price is Right. But of course, a lot of it encompasses how I got there and talk about my family and traveling and a little bit and touch upon the basis of my life to getting to the point where I was on The Price is Right and being let go.
Yeah. It's a couple things come out of that. One is, you were let go, and I guess it seems the way that they just brought it on you. They didn't give you a chance to prepare or kind of a heads up. And then I think about too, even what we were talking about earlier about the young lady that was looking to sue the show because of a sexual harassment that she claimed, but it was really consensual relationship. What's the code of women at the time? Like, are things happening with women behind the scenes and they're not telling in that era? Even we can go in the 80s and 70s. Because now there seems to be a resurgence. Some people are bringing up stories from years ago. Do you have your own personal stories that you kind of I'll save it for a later conversation? Or how was the industry to you in terms of sexual harassment?
Well, I never felt sexually harassed. Like I said, I was fresh myself. I was fresh. I'm still fresh. But so that part never, but there was an undertone of a little bit of, and I don't want to say racism, but of course CBS and back then, and the lack of diversity in front of and behind the cameras was very prevalent. And from time to time, I could feel a little icy feeling from some of the producers or some of the stage hands. Just, like you want to feel like you belong there, but sometimes you don't feel like you own it, like you belong there. And that happened to me like first couple, 2 or 3 years maybe. And then of course I kept coming back. So I'm like, this is, hey, my second home. This is me. I own this. Okay, I'm here. I'm going to be here for a while. Everything is cool. You learn to just accept the people and know them as a family. But there were some other things going on that I heard about in the production office by one of the assistants there, Debbie Curley. She talked about hearing the N-word passed around a few times. I was never there. I was never privy to that. But she said she heard it. And a lot of things did come out after I wrote the book, or during the period I was writing the book, that I found out that were said. There were some things that came about that I think Claudia Jordan, who preceded me, talked about and said some of the mail that I never got that was very racially motivated, that I never saw that mail, the fan mails, that would come in, and she had mentioned it. And some other things that were said that I probably at some point when I got let go, had I known that, I could have used the race card to say that this was something that was said about me. And I can't even remember what it was right now, because like I said, I kind of did a little investigation and didn't want to, it's not a Bob Barker bashing book by any means, but a lot of things I wanted to find out the truth behind the scenes that happened to some of the other people that were let go, some of the camera people, and because they just didn't agree with Bob on some certain levels, when there were some depositions being done with Diane or with Holly, she was let go unjustifiably, and how he treated some of the staff and what have you. There's a lot of that just did not come out. Of course, especially if they're working there, nobody's going to badmouth Bob or talk bad about him. Yeah. But some of these things did exist. So I wrote about a few of them in the book, but, I didn't belabor on it, but,
I kind of have a few more questions and then we'll be wrapped.
Yeah.
Looking at kind of you wanting to be a comedian, you dating comedians, and then even in terms of the era that you were in, did you ever have any run-ins with Bill Cosby in those times?
I had met Bill Cosby first time I met him. I was dating Richard Roundtree. Okay. Richard and I were still very good friends, but I dated Roundtree for a while. And he was a good friend with Bill Cosby. Mm-hmm. And we went to his home, I think it was the Bel Air home. I forget which one. Bill was with some young lady. He was still married at the time. And so we stayed in our own little rooms and stuff, had fun, had a little dinner or whatever. And that was it when I had kind of met him then. And then sometime later down the line, I was working on, I think it was the NAACP, the Image Awards backstage or one of those shows. And Bill was there, Cosby. I said, "Hi, Bill, how are you? I don't know if you remember me. I was with Richard Roundtree. We came up to the house." He said, "Oh, yeah, I remember you." And actually, I was on The Price is Right at that time. So it was in the 90s. And actually, he had his other show going on too. What was To Tell the Truth or something. He had a black girl on there. It was the only model. I forgot what show it was. So he said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about adding another model to my show. And would you be interested in what have you? Like to talk to you about it and what have you?" I'm like, "Yeah, maybe, if it works out." So he was flying back to New York. He actually called me. We were in touch about it. And he wanted me to come to New York. Okay. To either audition or do the show or what have you. And it just didn't feel right. I'm like, "Bill, I'm married, and because he was leading up to some kind of, he didn't want to be blatantly saying, "Hey, how you doing? Come on in." And it just didn't feel right. And so I said no, and I did dodge that bullet, thankfully, because I could have been a little more naive in thinking that truly, this guy, Bill, wants me to be in this. That would be great. See if I could work both of them.
Yeah, you think that was his game, kind of? Because I've seen his.
Absolutely, it was. Oh my God, that guy! I can't believe all the stories. And I know Beverly Johnson very well too, and I know she would never ever lie about some of what happened to her. Yeah. But it was.
Was there something that, like in particular, that he said or a gesture that he did where you was like, "Yo, this doesn't seem as legit as he might be presenting"?
Well, I think maybe he might have alluded to the fact, have you read for the I don't know if read for the show or be part of the show or see how you work out there and we could just hang out and kick it for a little while. Something like that. And I don't want to actually say anything verbatim that he said, but he alluded to something of that nature that kind of sent up a red flag. I'm like, no, I'm not.
You can tell at this
there.
point you've been in the industry.
It was kind of like being hit head on a bit, but not blatantly. Like I said, it was under an undertone that you can tell that he wanted me more than just to be a model on the show or audition for it or whatever.
Yeah. Now, outside of that, thank you for sharing that in terms of experience. You know, you would land Friday. We just getting to Friday, finally now, you know, and that's why I was hinting earlier, such a rich life that I think is one of inspiration that you're able to have all these stories. Now, Friday itself has become a large part of who you are to a certain or a couple generations. How did you land the role in Friday as Miss Parker?
Actually, I got a call from my agent, and she said, Kathleen, there's a movie that's coming out, a role for you, and Ice Cube specifically asked for you. He said, I want that black lady on The Price is Right. I was still on The Price is Right. I never really had a name. I was always known as that black lady on The Price is Right. I could go to a grocery store somewhere, anywhere, and a girl and her mama or somebody, they'd be like, mama. And they'd come up to me, ain't you that black lady on The Price is Right? I'm like, yep, I'm that black lady on The Price is Right. And Ice Cube referred to me as that person as well. But then, of course, they found out my name and everything through SAG-AFTRA. Mm-hmm. And they found out where my agent was, and they had me come in to audition. And he pretty much, I think maybe they might have saw one or two other girls, but he was pretty much fixed on the fact that he wanted me to play this role, mm-hmm. which I was flattered, and I went in and nailed it anyway. And got on there. I worked actually maybe 2 days on the whole set. And wow. I worked with Bernie Mac, of course, and Chris Tucker and Ice Cube, and my little husband, Tony Cox, whom I still stay in touch with. But just to do that at that point, who knew that it was going to turn into the iconic movie that it is today? I mean, how blessed we all were to be able to work on that film.
Yeah, that's a beautiful outlook on it. Because if in several interviews, some people have talked about how much they were paid for it. And there was even a conversation, a debate.
You know, was what they call the favorite nations. Mm-hmm. Everyone was paid the same amount because they were working on such a low budget. Well, most of us were anyway. Mm-hmm. And on such a low budget and what have you. When we got paid for doing the movie, don't let anybody ever tell you they did not get paid. They might not have gotten paid what they wanted to get, and they may not have gotten paid what they thought they should have got based on the movie's success after we did it. But hell, we're making more money now from residual checks than we could have probably ever have dreamed of, that, you know, in comparison to.
So you don't agree with the criticism? Because Cube was getting criticism when this thing went viral about, I think he paid like maybe John Witherspoon $5,000, and then a couple guys like somewhere in those ballparks.
He could have. I'm sure those actors and Anna Marie and maybe some other well-known people got paid more. I bet you Regina King got paid the same as we did at that point because she wasn't who she was. I bet you Bernie Mac got pretty much the same. So most of the players, day players or whatever you want to call them, got paid that. I think we got $250 or something like that per day. And it was okay with everybody at that time and point. So for anybody to come out and just blast.
Yeah, if you look at what happened with your guys' careers afterwards, you know, not only the residuals, but it propelled you to the masses.
Absolutely.
And opportunities come. So that's great that you see it in that.
Oh, absolutely. And they have to. Anybody else who thinks otherwise is tripping. You know, come on.
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say the writing's on the wall, literally.
Yeah. Now, Miss Parker was a vixen in her own right, in terms of with film. How did that impact your dating? You were married at the time?
Yes, I was.
You were married at the time. How did that did that ever affect the household, your marriage, with the type of attention that you were getting?
No, not then when I did it, obviously, but after a period of time, as time went on, and Miss Parker got even more and more popular. And my husband, bless his heart, Terrence Red, he's such a great guy. He would just accept it as people would come up to me and say, "You Miss Parker, oh, Miss Parker, I want a picture." They would just push him out the way, and he would just take it. And he would always tell the time that we were at I think Floyd Mayweather was fighting someone in Las Vegas. I was invited there. And we were at the weigh-in. My husband and I were there at the weigh-in. And so everybody was talking and milling around. You know how they have it in the background and what have you. So I got up on stage. The guy introduced me. He said, "Hi, this is our Kathleen Bradley. You might know her, recognize her from The Price is Right. First black lady on The Price is Right. One of Barker's beauties." Everybody's still talking, milling around. Everybody's doing stuff. He said, "And also, how many of you all saw Friday?" People stopped for a minute and raised their hands and said, "This is Miss Parker from Friday." And those guys they came and ran up to that stage. You would have thought it was a stampede. It was funny. And my husband, he always remembers that time. He says and jokes about it. He said, and people ask him how he perceives it. He said, "Man, I don't know. What do you think? What would you think if half the world wants to screw your wife?"
Right.
And he takes it, and to be honest with you, he's kind of used to it. Believe it or not, he was married to Bernadette Stannis from Good Times. That's his first wife.
Okay.
He was married. So he was used to that, having, his wife being out in the
I
forefront.
think there's something to maybe learn. You being with your husband, I'm sure there's a mentality that he has, because some men do pursue beautiful women and they don't understand the pressure that comes with it when you're in that space.
Right.
You're gonna have people trying to really, to be real with you in the industry. I'm sure some men that are in position try to fuck Miss Parker.
Right. Yep. Right in front of me.
How does, what do you think his approach is? Where's his head at?
It took a long time. He accepted it, and did well with it. He's an engineer. He's just a bright guy. He's fun, good looking. He just know and feels good within himself about himself and our relationship.
Right.
But at some point I could see where it was starting to bother him, and he wanted to be a little bit more not noticed. I think I had to start giving him a little more attention at some point, because the relationship was getting a little rocky and different things. And
you think that was due to the success of Miss Parker?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And, even though he's always been so supportive and right there for me all the time. And I just kind of had to stand back sometimes and look at him and say, and be a little more, just engaging with him, for him. And that's why, like I said, I always still cooked at home. I would do my cleaning and stuff. So I was really, aside from Miss Parker outside, I was the wife and Kathleen inside. Like they say, cook it up in the kitchen, throw it up in the pan. And I'm a woman, and all that stuff. And that's what I do.
I was going to ask you.
I believe in that.
I was going to ask you, I was like, okay, well, what are you doing as a wife to make your husband feel secure that, hey, I know I'm getting all this attention,
right,
but baby, I chose you. I'm with you.
That's what I do. Like they do say a woman's heart's through his stomach. I cook. I love to cook, and he loves my cooking. And I always make sure that the house was nice and neat and clean, and always some food ready for him when he came home from work. If I was working and not working, and there, and just making provisions and just doing what I have to do to make it nice and easy and comfortable for him to be able to have a good, clear mind so he can keep making that money.
Yeah. Chris Tucker played Smokey in the movie. When he had the line, "When you gonna let me fuck Miss Parker," was that him spontaneously saying this? Was this in the script, or? I
think he just made that up. He made a lot of stuff up, and how they did stuff throughout the whole movie. That it just worked.
Are you flattered? Were you flattered with that type of attention? Because that's not a gentlemanly thing. That's not something that we're told to speak to a woman, but.
Well, initially, and I would tell this story, we did the table reading. We'll sit down, just me, Chris, and Q, for that scene. For the first time we read it, and we were going over the lines, and Chris wanted to say, you know, Miss Parker's a hoe. She always been a hoe. He was doing a lot of ad-libbing and stuff. I'm like, I was taken aback. What? Miss Parker's a hoe? Because I didn't really know exactly the, extent of who Miss Parker was. Yeah, she was a hoe. But I didn't feel like that was the part I was portraying. I just thought I was the sexy next door neighbor lady and everything, but whatever. And I said, no, don't say that. And then I guess they said, no, don't say that. It's a little harsh. F. Gary Gray said that. So that's a little harsh. So basically, just, everybody felt whatever was going on because they gave me that hose and said, okay, they're going to be coming down the street. And, just work that hose and water and just do it as sexy as you can, whatever. So from there, I just improvised and did the bend down and the everything in the water and all that and what have you. And when they walked by, hey, Miss Parker, hi, boys. And then he just happened to say, when you gonna let me fuck you, Miss Parker? What you say, honey? And everything just it just kind of fell in line. But I did have that, Anna Maria and I, we rehearsed our lines and stuff where she said, hey, girl, what you doing? Okay, call me later, girl. Okay. It's just people's, it all just worked out. Everything in that movie, the way people perceived their other characters and the people they were working with and the scene at that time. And we had so much creative freedom from F. Gary Gray, the director, which really helped make that movie successful because we didn't have much time or money in order to make it. But it all worked with the professionals he had.
With Miss Parker, with the thing about acting sometimes, someone's image is important, but also their craft and their ability to perform. Do you feel that with a role like Miss Parker, did it kind of outshine your actual ability, like of talent, because you can sing and do other things? Did it overshadow becoming this sex symbol? You think it hurt your career?
It didn't, I don't think it hurt my career, but people do get put in, little category and what have you of a character and thinking that that's all they can do. That's all she can do. I was offered some other roles and I did do a few other things along the way. But one thing that really stifled me was being on The Price is Right. We were never really allowed to go out and do auditions and different things of that nature. So I just sometimes had to forego some auditions for different things. And then on the other hand, I might say, hey, if it's worth it, I'm gonna not come in and say I'm sick or take time off and come in late to work and do the audition. But, I really should have gotten an agent or a better manager, which I did at some point, but it just didn't kind of work out. For some reason. And I was kind of complacent and happy doing what I was doing. There just wasn't the right role that came up for me at that particular time. So.
Yeah. And did you get hit with a lot of roles after that was like a Miss Parker type? And just
there were a few that people wanted and still to this day want me to kind of emulate or do or be or what have you. It's just wasn't the right thing, to do.
Yeah. My last few questions. Now, on the film Friday, I had a conversation with Angela Means about it, which was the people that we lost on the show. Was there one particular loss on that cast that maybe hit you the most, that affected you the most out of those people?
Probably Bernie Mac. Because he and I shared that scene together. We spent some time together. Mm-hmm. When people see things on the scene that maybe for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, you're basically spending much more time with that particular person behind the scenes in preparation for the scene. Like we spent the day together and all they saw maybe was 10, 15 seconds of him going over to me, going in the house and coming back out. We spent a lot of time in that house talking, communicating, and became good friends. And that was for one day. And we would just stay in touch. I was working with some products that were very healthy for people and everything. And I had something that he liked and I shipped it to Chicago, met his wife, or talked to her and everything. We said, if he was in LA, come to the show or do something, or Chicago if I was in the area. But we would stay in touch and what have you over a period of time.
Yeah.
So out of all the people who passed, that would be probably the most devastating.
Do you remember
Yes.
where you were when you found out the news of his passing?
Gosh, I cannot quite remember absolutely at this moment where I was at his passing.
Yeah.
You know, John Witherspoon, though, was another. I know his wife, Angela, very well. She and I were modeling together for many, many years. I remember when they first got together and married and what have you. I didn't really spend a lot of time with her, but I knew her and him through her, basically, and being married. So that, and because of her pain and knowing her so long, that was devastating to me, just to see her going through all that anguish and pain for his passing.
There was a conversation about Friday where, Chris Tucker would ultimately not return to the franchise. He would do one, and decided not to return. They were speculating that was for religious beliefs. He's also talked about it, because weed was a big prevalent theme for Friday. Do you agree with him not stepping away, or do you think maybe he should have reconsidered just from your vantage point as an actress?
I think at that point he must have made the best decision, because the movies he went on to do with what's the ones with the Chinese?
Rush Hour.
Rush Hours 1, 2, and 3. That really, I think it was the best decision he could have made.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as Miss Parker, was there a reason why she didn't return?
You know what? I think they just redirected their whole movie. That second one to me was not that good. I think I've seen it maybe once. I will not watch it again.
Okay,
Third,
what made it not that good?
Because they changed the whole element. Mm-hmm. The whole element changed.
And this is the one.
It's hard to replace and change the recipe that made the beer of Milwaukee famous. You know, when you do that and mess with it. And I think the element changed way too drastically, too much. He's trying to move on up to the suburbs and everything. People didn't want to see that. And then some of the other elements he introduced into it just didn't work. That one definitely did.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Coming from you, I think people are going to be debating that, because that's a great debate of which one was the best Friday.
Well, I think the box office speaks for itself, which one is still rolling and making most of the money and why. The third one I think was pretty funny. I did see that once or twice. I haven't seen it that much. Of course, I didn't want to see them because I wasn't in it. But now they're trying to do the final fourth one, and it has been because of Lionsgate. They did not want to. Is it Lionsgate? Yeah. They didn't like. Cube and Pooh handed them 2 scripts and they didn't like it. Mm-hmm. They can't come to an agreement, which I heard that some of it was based about them being in jail or prison or something. I don't even really know what the script is like, but all I know is people want to see the main characters from one, the ones that are surviving. They have them putting a certain element back in the kind of a hood. Nobody wants to see anybody going to Beverly Hills, that you all rich and famous and stuff now. They want to see maybe going through it or getting to it, but still have a message in it. But people have grown and have changed a little bit. But they, once a tiger, always a tiger,
Right.
Once a cat, always a cat. You can change your stripes a little bit, but you're still going to be that same person in just a different light. And that's what people want to see. They want to see there was
I think with Friday that you were in, there's such a great story too, if it's as a movie. Mm-hmm. But you're also seeing representation. You're seeing us in representation. I know that Pooh and Cube went into it not trying to maybe show a lighter side of the hood. I believe they were trying to do, because you had Boys in the Hood at the time and it was like gang. But this was more so like an everyday relatable approach. And so that's just fascinating to hear why you think number 2 kind of lost its sauce, because it went somewhere else and it stopped being as relatable.
It was about the hood, in the hood, and about, what people do there every day. And the thing is, and how at the end of the day, it did have the good message to it that, hey, we use these to fight. You don't need to be shooting up, having guns, and you don't even really need to have all the dope selling and smoking and all of that. People elect to do that to make the money. Mm-hmm. But in the essence, in getting to that truth at the end, it was just so funny and hysterical. And honestly, funny where I look at it this day and I still crack up and laugh. And everybody that watches it have seen it over and over. I have a 14-year-old grandson with Down syndrome. He's seen it so many times. I think he hasn't really seen the movie. What he has seen is the YouTube, the clip. And his dad and my daughter, obviously, they're not together, but his dad's friends, they said, that's your grandmother, Miss Parker, your grandmother. I said, yeah, Miss Parker. He said, hi, Miss Parker. He calls me Miss Parker. Hey, Miss Parker. I said, I'm your G-Ma boy. You stop calling me Miss Parker. He just loves and cracks up. But everybody just loves that movie. Everybody I've talked to that's seen it. They do have a clean version. They came out with a clean version.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, this is my last question. This has been a great conversation. Again, thank you for your time. When you look at your life and your career, you've done so much and you're still out here doing it. You know, years later, you doing this interview, you still on the grind, you pushing the book. What is driving Kathleen Bradley that may be something that we all can take from to continue to keep going?
Because I want that new Range Rover. That's it. Bye. No. Oh, gosh. You know, it is just the innate ability that I have within my heart and my soul and the energy I have. And I always believe in keep moving. We just celebrated my aunt's 100th birthday back in Ohio. And hopefully it's within our genes that we're all going to live that long, or at least we are capable of doing so. But I do believe in keeping it moving by all means. Stay sharp mentally, physically, work out, do what you keep doing, you know, try to keep your youth. Family is so important to me, helping them out. And, you know, I'm a Capricorn. I like that money and I know there's more out there. I don't have to work if I don't want to. My husband, he just started actually working at Paramount Studios. Wow. And we have a home business, but he's one of the head engineers, energy and mechanical up there. He just started that. And like I said, our son's working with us. So I'm doing all kind of things. I'm administrative assistant at home and accounting, grandma, help raising my grandson. And I love to golf, love to travel. I'm still doing speaking engagements and judging the Miss Black America Beauty Pageant in Bahamas next month. Traveling still. Just keep it going. Yeah. Keep it moving. And I have a movie that's going to be coming out next year. It's called The Daughters of Dolomite, produced by Foster Corder. And it is about, of course, the late, great Dolomite. And he has 3 daughters that he never knew he had. One Asian, Hispanic, and Black. And they meet up. The mothers just say, you take them now. And it's really funny. I am the actual parole officer, and we're trying to get this lottery ticket and find out where it is. And it's funny. And she's sexy. She kind of Miss Parker on crack. Okay.
What does that wild. Look like?
I'm called Lock 'em Up Lottie. Okay. She's really wild. She's something else. That hopefully will be out sometime next year. We shot it, last year and did some takes and some pickups. It was very low budget, so we did it on a little shoestring, but it's funny. Honestly, it is pretty good.
What would you tell that young lady that went to the theater back home in Ohio? What would you tell her now?
Oh, that young lady, just that, that young lady made some good decisions. And by divine order and her belief in God and family, and just knowing that it's all possible and out there in perseverance, that she's making it happen and she's going to continue to make it happen.
Miss Kathleen Bradley, thank you for your first one-on-one with Hype Plus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste.